them, but I have not
I
seen in the last 4 months
Professor, you're
abuse.
smart,
No.
and I've read your stuff, and I've read your writings. And I don't want to get bogged down with this, but I have little respect for your opinion because I've read your stuff. When someone is in the White House that you agree with, and someone gets a universal injunction against him, you don't like universal injunctions. You called them judges acting like they're politicians in robes and judges looking like crass political actors. But now that President Trump's in the White House, who you dislike, you think that universal injunctions taste like pumpkin pie. So I have to discount what you say because I think you act on your political beliefs. And I worry that that's what you're teaching your kids. You're part of what's the problem in all of this.
Senator John Kennedy goes full throttle as he exposes a liberal law professor's stunning hypocrisy on universal injunctions, Trump-era court rulings, and her own disgraceful comments about the Supreme Court. In this fiery Senate hearing, Kennedy pulls no punches, and by the end she's left speechless. In the marble halls of the U.S. Senate, what began as a routine hearing on judicial power quickly escalated into a masterclass in accountability. Senator John Kennedy, never one to mince words, set his sights on a left-leaning law professor known for her outspoken criticism of President Trump and her questionable academic takes. What followed was nothing short of brutal. So seat back and let's dive right in.
Would any of you advise a client to defy a federal court order?
No.
None of you would? How about you, Professor?
I mean, under most circumstances, we follow the government and private parties follow court orders. I suppose it's not, I would not rule out ever the possibility that in a sufficiently egregious order, there should be some consideration of whether there's a way.
So in some cases,
I think it's a qualified answer,
in
yes.
some cases you would.
In an extremely narrow band of cases, I think it would be considered, yes.
Okay. Do any of you think that nationwide or universal injunctions are not being abused?
I'm not sure what if I may, Senator, I'm not sure what the time horizon of the question is. I don't think that there could be good faith disagreements about the correctness of some of them, but I have not seen in the last 4 months abuse.
Smart,
no.
I've read your stuff, and I've read your writings. And I don't want to get bogged down with this, but I have little respect for your opinion because I've read your stuff. When someone is in the White House that you agree with, and someone gets a universal injunction against him, you don't like universal injunctions. You called them judges acting like they're politicians in robes and judges looking like crass political actors. But now that President Trump's in the White House, who you dislike, you think that universal injunctions taste like pumpkin pie. So I have to discount what you say because I think you act on your political beliefs. And I worry that that's what you're teaching your kids. So I'll leave you out of that. Professor, let me ask you this while I have you. On April 22nd, 2024, you said there are some members of the Supreme Court that are evil. Which justices were you talking about?
I'll take it your word, Senator. I don't recall using that word, but.
All right, here's what you said. You were talking about the majority opinion in Muldrow v. City of St. Louis. You said, quote, Justice Kagan, will she be able to control the opinion's future distortion by her evil colleagues? Probably not, end quote. Who were you talking about?
Sir, I'm very skeptical. If it's a transcription, it was probably a transcription error. I do not think I said.
No, you said it. Why don't you own up to it? Which you call some of the members of the Supreme Court evil. Now, which ones do you think are evil?
I would have to refresh my recollection. I've been very critical of some members of the Supreme Court.
You're embarrassed that you made that statement, aren't you?
I'm
You're an officer
Senator, it doesn't sound like something that I would say.
You know what I'm embarrassed at? That you're teaching our kids.
I don't refer to Supreme Court justices as evil in
in
the classroom,
on
sir.
your podcast, April 22nd, 2024.
Okay, well,
big as Dallas. And you're an officer of the court, and you're here advising us to be respectful to federal judges, and you say they're evil members of the United States Supreme Court? Gag me with a spoon. You're part of what's the problem in all of this.
In an age where legal theory is too often twisted by ideology and truth is buried under academic elitism, Senator John Kennedy stands out, not because he shouts the loudest, but because he cuts the deepest. With that signature Southern drawl and razor-sharp intellect, Kennedy didn't just dismantle weak arguments in this hearing, he exposed a dangerous double standard infecting the highest levels of our legal and academic institutions. He revealed how so-called experts hide behind credentials while pushing partisan agendas. He laid bare the rot of selective outrage, where the Constitution is honored only when it's politically convenient. This wasn't just a takedown, it was a wake-up call. A warning that we, as a nation, are at risk of losing faith in the very systems designed to protect our freedoms. Because when professors start calling Supreme Court justices evil and still claim the moral high ground, we have to ask, who's really teaching the next generation of lawyers what justice means? Senator Kennedy didn't let it slide. He refused to let political posturing hide behind a blackboard. He spoke for every American who believes that justice should be blind, not color-coded by party affiliation. He defended the idea that the law should be consistent, not applied differently depending on who sits in the Oval Office. And that's why his voice matters now more than ever. In a room full of Ivy League resumes and legal doublespeak, Kennedy brought something they couldn't fake: principle, clarity, and courage. So the next time someone shrugs off universal injunctions as no big deal, or dismisses judicial respect as optional, remember this moment. Remember who stood up, not just for Trump, not just for conservatives, but for the rule of law itself. Because Kennedy didn't just challenge a professor, he defended the Constitution, and in today's climate, that takes more guts than most are willing to show. Subscribe now for more truth, more accountability, and more leaders who still believe in the power of principle.